Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. As we're at a festival of ideas, I thought I'd better start my remarks with a fairly fundamental idea, and that is the idea of disability. I think we have either a notion of disabled people as superheroes or disabled people as incapable. And this idea distracts from the heroic concept of disabled people, distracts from the very human desires and needs of disabled people. They are just people, like me, like you, like everyone here. But we have this notion of them, which I think is very, very difficult, and others disabled people. But on the other hand, we see disabled people as incapable. This is a reductive quality for our desire to protect, one in which disabled people recognise and struggle to overcome. Protection is often manifest with infantilization, and the enormous economic and creative potential of disabled people is overlooked and undervalued. And disabled people are too often seen as through a cost lens, rather than a consideration of their potential. And therefore, to reform our welfare system, I think we need to fundamentally reconsider how we see disabled people, and we need to recalibrate it to one where we try to enable people rather than to support, and mostly to protect. And part of this issue revolves around the good move, in my view, from a medical model of disability to a social model of disability. And put simply, that the medical model, which kind of existed before the 1980s, was one that suggested that disability was a deficiency in the individual, while the social model views disability because of the barriers put forward by society. And being disabled now is seen just as a manifestation of the diversity of society. And the changing perception of disability has led to an increasing number of people as self-declaring as disabled. Today, 1 in 4 people consider themselves disabled. There are about 600,000 people eligible for disability benefits in 1990, and now that is about 7 million people. There's a particular increase in recent years in the number of young people claiming these benefits and people with mental health conditions. Nearly 1 in 10 people of working age are now on at least one sickness or disability benefit. Over 2.8 million people are out of work with long-term sickness benefits. 1,000 people a day are claiming personal independence payment, and that would mean over the course of a year the size of the city of Leicester, and 5,000 people a day are now deemed incapable of work, and over the course of a week that would mean they could fill the size of the O2. So given that framework that I've just set out, I think we need to look at fundamentally what our benefit system is trying to do, and whether it is the right framework given the great numbers now that are coming through the gateway onto these benefits. And so I'm going to talk about personal independence payment. And this is an extra cost benefit. But given the number of people now claiming disability benefits and personal independence payment, one has to consider whether all these people, they may well be disabled, all these people actually incur an extra cost. So we need to consider whether there's some types of support that might be better suited to them than merely a financial benefit. So I'm going to talk about a few things that I think could help change the debate and the narrative around these benefits. Firstly, I actually think some of the things that the government tried to do in the previous reforms were actually quite good. That's not actually been discussed a lot, but the idea that you shouldn't have an extra financial incentive in the work capability assessment to show what you cannot do, I think is a positive thing. And I think too many times our benefit system is framed around trying to show what you cannot do rather than what you could be able to do. So I think that was a positive by removing the work capability assessment. And they'll do that by 2028. And so there's a couple of ideas that I have. One, probably my most controversial idea, is especially for young people, personal independence payment, while it's an extra cost benefit, should become a conditional benefit. That means that people, the reason behind that is because PIP claimants, for example, 40% increase for young people 16 to 25 since 2019. And I think this is really damaging. And 70% of young people now claiming personal independence payment are claiming it for mental health problems. And we know that individuals who applied for PIP, 37% of them are in work when they claim. But within a year, it's only 23%. So while it's an extra cost benefit, it does lead to a reduction in employment. And therefore, I think there's a real argument to be had about ensuring people have a stake in our society. And therefore, personal independence payment for young people in particular, 16 to 30, should be made a conditional benefit on partaking in something in society. That doesn't actually mean just work. It means volunteering, possibly education, some form of formal employment, but basically creating the sense that you're involved in society. And secondly, I think our benefits are merely a test about getting on to some sort of financial support. So therefore, when you go to a benefits assessment, you never discuss what types of needs you might have. It's all about what you cannot do to get the extra money. So I think assessment needs to be fundamentally changed into more of a conversation around what the society can do to help you. So for example, they should discuss things like access to work in a benefits assessment. Rather, it's just merely about what you cannot do to get the money that you need. And finally, because I think I'm probably running out of time, we have a very static benefit system. Our system hasn't changed since 2012, 2013, when the Welfare Reform Act came into force. But our society has fundamentally changed over that period. And so I think there's a level at which Parliament has become impotent and not done its job of actually re-evaluating whether these benefits are correctly are actually correctly helping people. So I think every couple of years, frankly, the assessment criteria for these benefits should be re-evaluated and actually should be voted on in Parliament. And I think it's a great shame that we don't have a more of an open conversation, frankly, about these benefits. And instead, every time we try to reform it, it becomes a massive, and you can see it in March, a massive debate rather than an iterative debate that happens all the time about whether we've got the right level of support for the right types of people. So thank you very much.
Thank you.